Welcome to our Middle East briefing. Today, we're diving into the intense situation in Gaza where Israel is facing mounting international isolation. Prime Minister Netanyahu warns of a possible, some sort of global separation, as Arab and Islamic nations call for legal actions against Israel. Meanwhile, global reactions are mixed, with Qatar condemning Israel's airstrike on Hamas and the US emphasizing that Hamas feels emboldened by Western recognition of Palestine. It's a tense scene with diplomatic efforts unfolding amidst escalating violence. Next up, a surprising moment of unity in international relations. Both the US and China have condemned Israel's recent attack on Doha, Qatar, an unusual alignment considering their usual differences. The UN Security Council also condemned the strike, highlighting the broader concern about regional stability and peace negotiations. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu responded defiantly, warning Qatar and others to take action against terrorists. This incident might just shake up the usual diplomatic dance and impact Israel's relationships across the globe. And in lighter news, a huge win for wildlife lovers. India's Vantara, a massive private animal rescue center operated by the son of billionaire Mukesh Ambani, has been cleared of wildlife violations after an investigation. Despite allegations of illegal animal acquisitions and housing endangered species near an oil refinery, the court found that Vantara's standards exceeded norms, and their imports were verified properly. It's a great reminder that sometimes, the truth comes out, and wildlife conservation efforts can be recognized for their good work. Please continue to watch for more updates. According to Deutsche Welle, the Middle East is witnessing a tense and volatile atmosphere as Israel prepares for potential isolation, a move that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu links partly to the growing influence of Muslim populations in Europe. The region's political landscape is further complicated by an emergency Arab Islamic summit in Qatar, where leaders condemned Israel's recent airstrike on Hamas leaders and called for legal measures to prevent Israel's continued aggression against Palestinians. The Gulf Cooperation Council, representing 6 Gulf states, vowed to activate joint defense mechanisms and urged the US to leverage its influence over Israel. Meanwhile, international reactions are mixed, with Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez calling for a sports ban on Israel and Russia, citing barbaric acts in Gaza and Ukraine, and Germany's President Steinmeier condemning the cancellation of a concert by Israeli conductor Lahav Shuni as blatant anti-Semitism. The situation in Gaza remains dire, with Doctors Without Borders warning of a looming humanitarian disaster as Israeli military operations intensify, and the Qatari ambassador to Berlin condemning the Israeli strike in Doha as a barbaric act that has angered the Qatari people, potentially jeopardizing mediation efforts. Netanyahu defends the Qatar strike as a message to terrorists, asserting that Israel must prepare for increased international isolation, while opposition leader Yair Lapid criticizes this stance as reckless and damaging to Israel's diplomatic standing. The global community's response to Israel's aggressive tactics, especially the recent strike on Qatar, has been unprecedented in its criticism, with the UN Security Council unanimously condemning the attack, although the US continues to support Israel. Despite this, Netanyahu remains defiant, emphasizing the need for Israel to bolster its self-sufficiency and military industry, even as tensions threaten regional stability and diplomatic relations. The scene in the United States and China, as reported by SCMP Opinion, underscores the rare consensus on the severity of Israel's actions, with both superpowers condemning the strike on Doha. China's strong condemnation contrasts with the more measured US response, which acknowledged that the attack did not serve American or Israeli interests. The UN Security Council's unanimous condemnation of the strike, without explicitly naming Israel, highlights the international community's concern over the incident. Yet, Israel's leadership, exemplified by Netanyahu's unwavering stance, dismisses global criticism, framing the attack as a legitimate counterterrorism measure and a message to Hamas and other terrorists. This defiance risks undermining the US's strategic alliances in the Middle East, especially with Qatar, a crucial US military partner hosting significant forces. The incident has exposed the fragile nature of regional diplomacy, with Israel's aggressive military actions threatening to destabilize the broader Middle Eastern landscape. The international outrage, coupled with the US's continued support for Israel, underscores a complex and precarious geopolitical balancing act, where Israel's military campaigns threaten to deepen regional instability and hinder prospects for peace. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation reports on the recent exoneration of Vantara, the world's largest wild animal rescue center, which is operated by the son of India's wealthiest man, Mukesh Ambani. Despite initial allegations of wildlife violations, the Indian Supreme Court's investigation found that accusations were based on conjecture and secondary reports. Vantara, which houses hundreds of elephants, tigers, lions, and crocodiles, had faced criticism for housing endangered species in a desert-like environment near an oil refinery. However, the court's findings affirmed that the facility's operations exceeded prescribed standards, with each animal import verified through multi-layered checks. Banterra expressed relief and pride in the court's support, emphasizing their commitment to wildlife conservation amid controversy. Deutsche Welle details the tense aftermath of an Israeli airstrike in Doha, Qatar, which killed 5 Hamas militants and prompted an emergency summit among Arab and Islamic leaders. Qatar's emir condemned the attack as a cowardly act that betrayed its mediation efforts in Gaza, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended the strike, asserting that Hamas's presence in Qatar justified the military action. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reiterated unwavering support for Israel amid the ongoing conflict and hostage crisis. The summit underscored regional tensions, with Arab nations demanding accountability and warning of repercussions, as the Gulf country navigates its delicate diplomatic position amidst accusations of being a haven for militant activity. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation also reports on the chaos that marred the final stage of La Vuelta a España in Madrid, where protests against Israel's participation disrupted the race. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez called for Israel's exclusion from international sports until the conflict in Gaza ends, following violent clashes between pro-Palestinian protesters and police. The protests, which included barriers thrown onto the course, led to injuries and the premature ending of the race, with Danish cyclist Jonas Vingegaard declared the winner. The controversy ignited a diplomatic firestorm, with Israel's foreign minister labeling Sánchez an anti-Semite, while European nations like the UK and France consider recognizing a Palestinian state. The protests cast a shadow over the sporting event, raising questions about future participation and the impact of political conflicts on international competitions. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation reports on the dramatic downfall of the Bendigo Writers' Festival, which has become a contentious issue within the local community. The festival's recent iteration was marred by a last-minute code of conduct that urged writers to steer clear of inflammatory language, sparking outrage among authors and attendees alike. Controversy intensified with the inclusion of Dr. Randa Abdel Fattah, an Australian-Palestinian author, whose participation was challenged following a leaked document from Jewish academics criticizing her presence under a definition of anti-Semitism from Universities Australia. Councillor Owen Cosgrove voiced his frustration, emphasizing the opaque decision-making process and warning that the council's mishandling might forever tarnish its reputation as the council that killed the Writers' Festival. Despite calls for transparency and ongoing inquiries, the future of the festival remains uncertain, with community members and writers demanding answers and lamenting the lack of independent oversight within the festival's organizational structure. Meanwhile, Yahoo US highlights the Trump administration's significant investment in historically black colleges and tribal universities, with a $500 million funding boost announced amidst ongoing political tensions. This infusion represents a substantial increase, with HBCUs projected to receive over $1.34 billion and tribal colleges more than $108 million for 2025. The Department of Education justified the funding shift by reallocating resources from programs deemed less aligned with student interests, emphasizing a focus on merit and excellence. This move comes in the context of Trump's broader use of federal funding as leverage, often threatening to cut budgets over issues like protests, diversity policies, and climate initiatives. The administration's actions reflect a strategic effort to bolster minority-serving institutions, even as critics question the fairness and long-term impact of such reallocations amidst a politically charged environment. In another geopolitical development, Yahoo US reports that Sachi Braverman, Israel's most powerful figure in Prime Minister Netanyahu's office, is set to replace Tzipi Hodovli as ambassador to the UK. Hodovli's controversial tenure was marked by her staunch right-wing stance, particularly her support for Jewish sovereignty over contested territories like the West Bank and her opposition to Palestinian statehood, which drew criticism from UK parliamentarians and threats to her security. Braverman, known for his strict control within Netanyahu's inner circle and his background as a former cabinet secretary, is expected to arrive in London by November after official approvals. His appointment signals a shift towards a more influential and closely aligned envoy, with Israeli media describing him as a key confidant of Netanyahu. Hodovli's departure comes amid ongoing diplomatic tensions and her outspoken support for contentious policies, illustrating the complex and often contentious nature of Israel's diplomatic and domestic politics. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.